1982, a group of residents in Warren County, North Carolina, gathered to protest the establishment of a hazardous waste landfill meant for the dumping of PCBs in the majority African American community of Afton. After 6 weeks of protests and more than 500 arrests, the dumping of the chemicals proceeded. Despite this failure, the Warren County protests were crucial, for the national coverage they garnered propelled the environmental justice movement into the limelight.
Environmental justice is a social movement dedicated to the preservation of environmental equity, the idea that no single demographic should be at a disadvantage when faced with environmental hazards.
Currently, the vast majority of facilities, like landfills, dumping grounds for toxic waste, and other methods of pollution occur in areas where the population is made up of low-income or minority demographics, despite the fact that most of such waste is created by a rich, white population. This is due to the lack of funds and legal representation necessary to stop the establishment of these hazards.
America claims to promote equality, yet the way we deal with environmental hazards is anything but. Our presidential candidates need to be discussing the promotion of environmental equity, for they are meant to represent the entirety of the country, and a large population of that country is currently at a disadvantage due to environmental hazards they had little hand in creating.
Now, who's exactly affected by this problem? Lower income and communities of colors are disproportionately affected by climate change and pollution. An example of this is how indigenous land is harmed. Roughly 3% of the country's oil and natural gas reserves, 15% of coal reservations, and between 37 and 55% of uranium reserves are located on indigenous land.
The EPA also found that African American communities are faced with about a 54% higher health burden when compared against the overall population. This is due to the large amount of energy facilities in their neighborhoods.
Effects of climate change heavily affect these communities harder as well. When natural disasters hit, lower-income people have a hard time recovering as they most likely don't have insurance, and the cost to repair the damage is too expensive.
The African American community, we don't have the luxury to pay more for green technologies. We need access to affordable energy to help heat our homes, power our stoves, and get back and forth to work.
Currently, laws regarding environmental justice and environmental equity are all but non-existent. Neither the national government nor any state governments have passed environmental justice laws.
4 states, California, Washington, Maine, and Massachusetts, currently have bills related to environmental justice. These bills are meant to either increase funding to aid people in areas facing environmental disadvantages or to create advisory councils to identify where this issue is most prominent and make plans to reduce its effects.
On a national level, there is a bill in the Senate known as the Environmental Justice Act of 2019. This bill is meant to require federal agencies to address environmental justice issues by allowing low-income and minority communities more information and input on decisions that could affect their environment, and making sure agencies consider their environmental impact as they move forward with various projects. Most objections to the environmental justice movement come from an economic perspective. Dissenters claim that the economic benefits of actions which harm the environment may outweigh the environmental costs.
One great example of this is the conflict over the Dakota Access Pipeline. Supporters of the pipeline claim that the new jobs increase energy security and tax money it provides outweigh any dangers that the oil pipeline may pose to the nearby Standing Rock Sioux tribe. However, they do not consider the entire story.
Earlier proposals for the pipeline placed it near Bismarck, North Dakota, a majority white community. The pipeline was moved because it was seen as a danger to the water supply, yet the people involved with the pipeline seem much less concerned with this now that a white community is no longer involved. It suggests that the economic benefits do not actually outweigh the environmental costs, just that people are less concerned when it is a minority group being affected by these hazards.
Local groups have come to address these issues, examples being Greenlining in Oakland, California, and the WE Act in Washington, D.C. While the advocacy groups are important to have, actual legislation needs to be put in place to protect people and the environment affected by these issues.
We need our presidential candidates to address environmental justice, to take action as these local groups have done, as ignoring this problem will only make it worse. Our candidates have a responsibility for the well-being of the country's people, and they need to be motivated to fill it.